Welcome everyone to the meeting of the Skaneateles Board of Education, February 1st. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Morgan, will you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, everyone is here tonight. We do have a forum, and we're now at the first opportunity for public comment. The board encourages public expression. At board meetings, speakers may comment on matters related to any agenda item. The board will not permit in public session discussion involving individual district personnel or students. Persons wishing to discuss matters involving individual district personnel or students should present their comments and/or concerns to the superintendent during regular business hours. All speakers are to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Personal attacks, obscene language, libelous statements, threats of violence, statements advocating racial, religious, or other forms of prejudice won't be tolerated. Total allocated time allowed for public comments 30 minutes with the option to extend by vote. There's 3 to 5 minutes per speaker. We offer a comment period at the beginning of regular meetings and then a second period at the end, but generally not at special meetings. We do ask speakers to identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. So if there's anyone that would like to speak to the board tonight, please do so now.
Okay, I'm Jeff Bulger, 1394 Coach Road. On the evening of last Monday, January 24th, the New York Supreme Court ruled that the Act Health NY.gov regulations pertaining to masks in schools 10 NYCRR 2.6 and 2.6a are unconstitutional. Supreme Court Justice Thomas Radmacher described it as, quote, a law that was promulgated and enacted unlawfully by an executive branch state agency and therefore void and unenforceable as a matter of law. The ruling has standing throughout New York State. This ruling means that it is illegal for schools to implement a mask mandate in New York State. On Tuesday evening, January 25th, the New York Appeals Court accepted a request for appeal and put a stay in place, which means the outcome of the Supreme Court ruling does not go into effect until the appeal process is complete. However, on Monday evening until Tuesday evening, before the New York Court of Appeals granted the stay in place, it was illegal for schools to enforce a mask mandate. On Tuesday, January 25th, during school hours, enforcing a mask mandate was illegal. On Tuesday, January 25th, Skaneateles schools continued to enforce the mask mandate in violation of a valid court order issued by a New York State Supreme Court judge. When some of the students who were aware of the decision exercised their legal rights to not wear a mask in school, they were told to put one on or they would face disciplinary actions. Some of the parents of these students also sent an email to the school beforehand, informing the school that their child would not wear a mask due to the ruling. On that day, there was no stay in place, and it was uncertain if the New York Appeals Court would accept the appeal. On that day, the Skaneateles School District broke the law, and anyone telling other staff members to enforce the mandate not only broke the law, but encouraged others to do so. At the last Board of Education meeting, when I talked about how surgical masks were ineffective, Mr. Knuth said, quote, we must follow the law. The school district ignored a New York State Supreme Court ruling so that they could continue to force the students and staff to wear masks. I was originally planning on talking about how we can better understand the school district's legal obligations and look for opportunities to get things back to normal within the limits of the laws. In light of recent events, this approach seems rather naive. Thank you.
Are there additional members of the public who would like to speak to the board tonight? You have a second opportunity then at the end of the meeting. Okay, proceeding with the meeting, I'd like to ask for a motion from a board member for approval of the minutes from January 4th as well as January 15th.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion, any correction on the minutes? Okay, then all in favor of approving the minutes from those 2 meetings, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we do approve those minutes. Mr. Knuth, would you please provide the superintendent's report?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Landon. I'll be very brief tonight. Last board meeting, we heard from Kevin McGowan, who runs the strategic planning process that we intend to follow as a school district. And I had set some dates out to the Board of Education for some initial meetings. Tentatively, the dates that were offered were either a date in the end of February as a kickoff meeting. Since we last spoke, I spoke to Kevin again. There's an additional date in April, and then three different dates in May for the subsequent meetings. So I could get the board all of the details and information about all the subsequent meetings. The main point that I wanted to discuss tonight was really the start of the thought exchange. So when we originally were conceiving what our strategic planning process was going to look like, we solicited participation from the community. Pleased to say we got 57 applicants that wanted to be part of that process. According to Mr. McGowan, we're trying to limit our core team to 50 individuals, and that includes Board of Education members, administrators, and then community members that solicited interest in joining the process. When we initially shared that information, we were not aware of Thought Exchange. So what Thought Exchange is a tool used by this strategic planning consultant to gather information from the community as a whole. So where, yes, we will have a core team of about 50 individuals. What we want to do as soon as this week, if it's the will of the board, is to open the Thought Exchange to our larger community. And basically, it's open-ended, free-form questions that solicit information from the entire community about the state of the district, things that are of concern or interest to individuals. And then the software helps us put together all of the thoughts and ideas that are shared community-wide and boil down into some really actionable emerging themes that then the rest of the core team picks up that ball and runs with for the rest of the strategic planning process. So we thought it was a lot more inclusive of the entire community. We can open the Thought Exchange as soon as this week, so I can send out emails. As soon as the board says go, we can get those emails going to the entire community and open that Thought Exchange this week, all the way through that February 28th or March 1st meeting. Any questions on that?
That would be to people who don't have kids in school as well?
It would be, it's targeted to everybody in our school community.
Okay.
So it's mostly students and their families. Yeah. So it's the good first step of starting the whole process is to really take a snapshot and capture everybody's opinions about the things that are going on in the district, what their hopes and dreams are for the future, and then those emerging themes will guide the core team throughout the rest of that process.
Would it be possible to see the questions ahead of time?
Yes, so basically I had asked the same question. Bear with me 1 second. I can give you the exact answer. So this isn't verbatim, but basically it is one question. How are we doing? What would you like to see us doing? What can we do better? What suggestions do you have? That's the core of the thing. And the idea is it is deliberately open-ended and a little bit on the vague side so that you're capturing anything that the community mentions.
And if I remember correctly, did he say, so when someone, if I get this as a parent and I say, I think we need more music, or I think we need more foreign language, whatever, my thought bubble goes out there.
Correct.
Other people see, they don't know that necessarily that it came from me,
Correct.
but they see my comment as well.
Yes.
So versus other processes in the past where it was a poster on the wall and people write the ideas and you kind of relied on that smaller group, this allows everybody to see what their peers are saying.
Yes.
In terms of peers and, in the parent group.
The idea is everybody has access to
See what everybody else is suggesting
observations.
anonymously, but see
Thank
what they're suggesting and, okay, I just want to make sure I remember that.
Yeah, and then that will hopefully trigger some things in people as they read it. It's like, yes, I totally agree with that, or absolutely not. I think something else is far more important. So that is, I think, probably the most valuable part of that is that everybody has access to it. There's no hiding, there's no secrecy, there's no manipulation of what goes on, so long as the things are, obviously appropriate and professional. But for the most part, we are ready to go as soon as the board says go.
Do we feel like we need a question that allows people to say more directly what they liked, so that as things start getting shuffled around and liked or disliked, or whatever the terminology is, some of the things that we currently have in place, we make sure to stay in place? I mean, if you read the questions.
What we value, yes.
There is a question in there, sorry.
I think, and I will send you the exact language tomorrow when
Okay.
I speak to Kevin again, but I know it is intended to capture the good
Yeah.
and also the concerns.
I just want to make sure there's a question that is clear. This is intended for you to say,
Yeah.
what do you want to see continue, so that they're not all open-ended to
Right.
necessarily all change? Because I don't want to lose in the shuffle some of the really great things that we are doing,
Right.
that people value.
And there are going to be things that people bring up that, quite frankly, are often beyond the scope of school or would cost $1 billion and are not possible. So the idea, this is where you initially throw that net as wide as possible. And then those themes, what are the things that are popping up over and over and over again that people would like to focus on? And that forms the basis of the initial work that Kevin will come and do with our core team.
So without seeing the questions and all that sort of fun stuff, my assumption is that it's a validated list of questions. It's stuff that he's applied in this scenario multiple times,
Yes.
so that we could rely on the results or the input being varied enough for us to formulate exactly or distill it into what we're really trying to get at.
Yes, and
So
that's
it
part
is
of the
a-
service.
So it is a validated questionnaire, it's a validated stuff that he has.
So this is not like a survey or a psychometric tool that we're used to with, disagree, I highly agree, things like that. It's not like that. This is narrative, it's free form. It's intended to be as open as possible. And then the tool helps capture those emerging themes that people are talking about over and over and over again.
I think, from what Eric said, it's like a brainstorming session electronically where
Yeah.
people can all do it on a laptop instead of sitting in a room, like Danielle said, putting stuff on a piece of whiteboard and doing it that way. It's just brainstorming, getting the ideas, and then the consultant will take those main themes and break them down into whatever number of areas that come out of the thoughts of the community.
What's nice about it too is that if we leave it open for weeks, as we intend to, you can have your initial thoughts and maybe you come back to it a few days later, read some comments that other people, and that'll trigger another line of thoughts or questions. It's supposed to be this kind of living, breathing thing until it is closed. So it would be closed, by the end of February. The intent is to give basically the entire month of February. Keeping in mind too, we have February break. Maybe some people have a little bit of time to carve out. That was intentional, so that not everybody is being asked to do one more thing on top of their already busy work lives and family lives and sports and extracurriculars and everything else. So we thought right after that break might be a good time to close it, so that everybody has ample opportunity. And it's as simple as a welcome letter that'll go out via Parent Square, and then the thought exchange is open, and we sit back and gather for the month of February before the real work starts.
I think the other benefit of this method, and because I know so many people go home and watch our board meetings as their Saturday night TV show, they probably already know this, but as he pointed out, this is a really great opportunity for people that maybe aren't as comfortable in a group setting voicing their opinion, but they still have a very valid opinion. And sometimes just some people talk more than others. That doesn't mean their opinion is more valid. So this gives everybody a completely level playing field because you're doing it from the privacy of your home. You're not attaching your name to it, so you can be brutally honest, good or bad, without fear of, kind of having to say what you truly. This is your chance to be honest.
Yep.
And I think that that is an opportunity that we don't get in the traditional strategic planning sessions where you are in a room and the people in the room see what you wrote and they know that it was you. This is really gonna allow people that maybe aren't comfortable in that setting to share their true feelings, and I think that's.
And that's one of the most attractive parts, and Danielle's spot on. That was one of the most attractive parts to me, was that you get that undistilled wide net over the entire community. Everybody has a chance to contribute, even those that are reluctant.
Do you know how many people are in when we talk about the school community?
So when I send out via Parent Square, it's over 1,600 families. And we have 99.9% reach in Parent Square, which is incredible. I think we might be missing one phone number or one email address. But when we hit those notices, if it's a snow day, or if it's a letter from me on whatever topic, 1,600 plus immediately.
Now, to clarify, this might be more of a common question, because this goes out to the whole community. If somebody if they don't have a child in the school, how do they sign up for Parent Square as a community member right now?
I'll give you that up during the ABF update.
Okay, just to make sure, so that for everybody who's, publicly watching, this is how you can access it if you haven't yet gotten on board as a community member, if you don't have a kid in school.
And we can hit that again later also, but in our newsletter that goes out, that's all over the community, there's a QR code. Hold your camera up to it and we'll launch your ability to access and participate in a Parent Square group, which is going to be critical for budget season. As the budget's a little different than school strategic planning in that everybody who owns property in the district is part of the school budgeting process. And a lot of those individuals no longer have kids in school or never did, frankly. And that is all for me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Any further questions before we move on?
Eric asked a question, if the board, in terms of the kickoff, right, in terms of, hey, today is Feb 1? Do we need to do something to give Eric the run with it?
So all I need is to say go, as far as the funding doesn't require board approval or anything like that. If this is the will of the board, we'll start tomorrow with a conversation with Kevin. I'll send the calendar of events out to the board to make sure that you are all available for some of the dates that are chosen. And again, the initial dates were, first meeting would be February 28th or March 1st. The second was a date in April, I want to say April 11th as a possibility. Also, the second and third meetings, we have May 2nd, 3rd, and 9th available. So I will communicate this again to you tomorrow with the additional date, and you can pick the days, and off we go.
Right, but as of this moment, you can roll this out tomorrow.
Yes.
With respect to opening up Parent Square, so we get it for 27 days of folks we
Yeah, I can get the thought exchange open as early as tomorrow.
Because you're just looking, just for the record, I guess, you're looking for our support, our commitment to this process.
Correct.
But it does not require board approval.
It does not.
You're just, as a courtesy, saying, I'm asking for your support in this as a board.
Correct.
But there's no vote required by the
No
board.
vote required, correct.
All right, let's go. Let's
All
go
right.
yesterday.
Excellent, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Very good.
And that's all for me.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brown, would you please deliver the school business manager report?
Absolutely, yep. A few topics for me, going to be pretty high level as well and quick. The first thing I wanted to go over was a few weeks ago we got the new initial state aid runs from the government, from the governor. I went over this with ABF pretty in depth last Monday. That is in the minutes of kind of a couple of the big topics, and I'll highlight those here. I'll try to zoom in. These are on the governor's website as well as on the minutes and on the board docs as well. So I'll pretty much just go down through these, and again, very high level. This is an 86-page document, first of all, and in our information is on page 51, on the bottom of page 51, just so everybody knows. So the first category of funding, the top part you'll see is basically the 21-22 school year. And then on the bottom is a comparison of the 22-23 school year. So the first big funding source is the foundation aid. And basically what that is a funding source from New York State to all school districts. There's a complicated backdoor formula that punches out a number that's based on about 30 different criteria. This is the money you're allotted. So over the past few years, you've been paying attention close enough. Last year we got 0.25% increase. The year before was 0%, and the year before that was 0% as well. So just in the past couple years, New York State has dedicated to fully fund foundation aid. So what that means is the foundation formula became active in 2011, and basically there have been some modifications to that over the course of the years. At times there weren't enough money to fund people fully, so over the past couple of years, the New York State has dedicated to fund districts fully up to the allocation. So the biggest thing here you'll see, and according to our allocation, we are fully funded, so we are getting the amount that we're supposed to be getting, but that means a minimum increase for us. Most of the money is going to those districts without that full allocation. So just on the bottom here, you'll see a change in foundation aid year over year. The minimum amount is 3% this year. You'll see us over here at 3%. And then say just this district next to us is Lynn Court. They're receiving a 41.5% increase. So they're doing their due diligence with the other districts and getting them fully funded and the amount they need, but we are receiving the minimum amount, and with 3% is only $127,000 increase over last year. And then, as we know, with the inflation rate of 7%, with the costs going up, it doesn't cut into much of those costs that we're incurring. So that's, again, just something that we have to plan for and find other revenue sources to look at. The next category is the universal pre-kindergarten aid. So last year was the first year we ever received this. There was a lot of skepticism to that, a lot of questions that were we going to continue to receive this, what were the laws and regs around this. We've done a lot of digging over the year, and just this past week we had, the biggest question was, were these funds going to continue? We didn't know if they were going to continue, and this is the second year. So we had a meeting with, it was Tina from the Office of Early Learning, it was me, Jen Whipple, and Joanna Smelling, who you'll see later in this board meeting, with a recommendation for a administrative internship. And this will be one of her main focuses, is looking into this and seeing the laws and regs, how we can use these funds and tap into these funds. And one of the biggest things we found out, that it has to be a full day program, whether it's on-site or off-site. There are some stipulations. Whether it's off-site, there has to be certified teachers, oversight, administration oversight. So there's, and then if we bring it in-house, we have that administrative oversight. We would have certified teachers, but then it's all the initial costs of furniture, supplies, materials.
Additional personnel.
Additional personnel, correct. And $118,000 doesn't get us too far. So we're looking into what other ways we can utilize these funds, but just to be it publicly known that we are digging heavily into this and trying to see what we can do with it. The next category is Boces Aid. So we are pretty much flat from last year. And that's just initial aid getting back from expenditures we incurred this current year. We have high excess cost aid. So basically what that is there's a threshold that a district receives based on special education students that are placed in certain programs or placements. So based on that threshold, any amount over that amount, we are funded at our aid ratio, which is 75% of excess cost aid. So you see last year we had 12%, or 12,000. This year we have 88,000. So we have additional students in high-cost programs, so we're getting a bit of a kickback, but there are initial costs up front. The next couple of categories are hardware, software, library, and textbook aid. So those are all based on enrollment. Enrollment is, we get a certain amount per kid for those certain services, so that is a fixed amount. Nothing we can do about that if we don't have additional students. Transportation aid, that's based on our contract transportation and additional runs that we do. We get a kickback on that of 33.2%. And then another big pot of funds that come back in aid is our building aid. So last year you see we have $1.193 million, and this year it only shows $1.177 million. And one thing I want to clarify here is that the only building aid that the governor will project on this run is all projects that have been officially closed out. So that does not include any of the phase 2 for the gym, for the auditorium, for these big projects that we have going on. And those are planned on being filed before December 1st of 2022, which will receive a full year of aid, and that's an additional $1.4 million. So that $1.4 million is not included in here. And in the ABF meeting, I went through to where to find these reports, and if you want to find out as well, feel free to reach out, but there are additional $1.4 million not included in this run. So our total state aid is about $8.4 million for next year projected. Any other questions on that? Okay. My next thing is each year we have a fiscal stress monitoring score, and what that is basically the New York State looks at our financial wealth and our stability as well as our environmental stability. And I'll be very high level at this. We received no designation of stress in either category. Each category has 6 different indicators, and I'll just go through those quick. For the financial indicators, they're unassigned fund balance. That measures the amount that you're over or under the 4%. Total fund balance, operating deficit, cash ratio, cash as a percent of monthly expenditures, and reliance on short-term cash flow debt. So that would be your need to borrow for short-term expenses. Again, no designation on financial, and now for environmental is the percent of economically disadvantaged students, students to teacher ratio, turnover rate of all teachers, percent change in property value, budget vote approval percent, and percent of English language learners. So again, no designation, but just wanted to highlight that's very good. A few years ago, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, we had a slight designation. I think it was called moderate, but for the past 3 years, we've had no designation there. So very good news.
Does that account for your stress, Connor?
Oh, no, that's not on this.
Fiscal stress?
Yeah.
Mental stress is not on
Yeah.
it. For budget, quick budget update. So we're very close to, we're very close to finalizing budget, and as you'll see in the later in the agenda, the amount of retirements that we're expecting. There's 6 currently on there, and then 1 that already was submitted. So that's 7 replacements, 1 that's already been gone. So it's definitely breakage in salaries, but how are we repositioning those those teachers? What are we backfilling? Can we afford another teacher? What that looks like, and we're meeting there. We'll be meeting with principals on because the deadline was last Friday on the submit, or it was actually yesterday to submit those. We received 1 yesterday, and I think 3 on Friday. So it's last minute type thing, and the reason for that is for us to plan budget wise, as well as for them to receive their incentive for retirement, so we can budget that in as well, and then we fund that from our reserves. But from a materials and supplies standpoint, contractual standpoint, debt service, benefits, we're all in line there. The biggest thing is the staffing, how that looks for next year. So there'll be more communication on that in the budget workshops, as well as with ABF. and additional updates at board meetings. So, any quick questions on budget? All right. Then facilities audit. So I received a call today on their facilities audit. They're just about finalizing that. So that basically is looking at our custodial, grounds, maintenance, that looks at staffing levels, as well as pay across different counties and like districts with similar sized budgets. So that could also have a budget implication. So they should have initial recommendations to us by the end of next week. And again, that could be a staffing and financial impact to the budget that we'll keep an eye on. And once that report is in hand, we'll review, share with the board, share with ABF on how we want to proceed, because they will just be recommendations, and then they'll be our fuel to say this is what we need, this is what we have needed, and how we're going to move forward. So once that's finalized, we'll provide another update there, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Connor.
Any questions for Connor? Thank you. Appreciate the report.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to give the floor to Mrs. Fleckenstein for a report of the ABF committee.
Connor covered several of the things that we actually discussed in ABF, so I can kind of tighten this up a little bit. One thing that we discussed in ABF, Connor's been working on a reserve document. It's a very simple one-pager that there's just a few final tweaks going to, but it will be posted to the website. It'll be used for public consumption to understand what reserves, aka our various savings accounts are, what the balances are in those accounts, and what their specific and limited uses are. I think it's very confusing to a lot of people in the public how we have all this money, but we're not allowed to touch it, or we can only touch it in certain circumstances. So this is a very clear picture for the public to understand at a snapshot what those funds are, what their restrictions are, what we have to maintain in them, and what their special uses are. So that'll be coming out and be posted online once it's got a few extra adjustments. We talked about the ARP application, which has also a whole bunch of other letters with it, which is that kind of COVID, Corona, federal, state funding that we had applied for. At the time of the ABF meeting, it was still in queue. So like anything else with the government, it was sitting in queue. I think you're waiting on or just got a response on that.
Friday we got approval. So we have approval to the allotment of funding with our initial recommendations how to spend those. And obviously, as we said multiple times, that's not final at all. We're still learning the needs of the students, needs of our teachers, all staff, and how those will be applied for and used to be determined. But, yeah.
And I think just to refresh people's memory, and correct me kind of from around, it had a specific yet broad path of what it was going to allow us to do, but things that support student learning and mental health and extra resources for students all fall under this package. So once you get more details.
Yeah, a few of the big umbrellas was the mental, social, emotional health, reading or academic recovery, intervention services, and some supporting status quo of those services.
The line that you're thinking of was and other related
And
services.
other.
Yeah. It was a nice broad umbrella for us to be able to target what kids need.
The other things that we discussed, which I won't rehash, we just talked about the state aid runs, which Connor just explained in detail, and the facilities audit. The other thing that we talked about, and it's going to require some education, probably from all of us as board members to the community in messaging. In our upcoming May budget vote, the library vote will be on the same piece of paper. That is about the extent of the involvement in the school district in this. We are just the facilitator for the library vote.
A collection agent.
The collection agent, it's going to be on the ballot. It is separate from the school. Again, it's just because we're already, to oversimplify it, we're already hosting a vote that day. So they're going to write on the same piece of paper. So I think it's going to just be making sure that, especially as a board, we're on the same page on that, so that if we get asked questions by the community about that, the library will be doing their own awareness campaign, but just if we get asked by our fellow community members, we're clear that this is a library vote that's just using our paper and our facility, and we're just helping facilitate their vote and their collection of the
Right, their budget, their funding is entirely separate
Right.
from the school.
Yeah, it's just same voting day.
Yep.
So we talked about that. The other thing we
And
talked
just,
about is continuing.
Just to add on that, so just because we haven't seen it on ballots in the past, for the past 5 years, they initially came for funding in 2016 for the $350,000 and have kept that amount for the past 5 years, so it doesn't need to go back out to vote, only if there is an increase, and that's what they're proposing this year, is why it will be on there.
The last thing that we touched on, Amanda, to your question about Parent Square, Connor's done some more footwork to reach out to other community groups that have no affiliation with the school to say to them, hey, can you distribute this link to your groups of people so that other members of our community, whether they are older or they don't just don't have kids in the school population, are aware that Parent Square exists so that they can choose what aspect of information they want to be aware of, whether it's everything or just budget stuff or community, general school community news. But so we're just continuing to try to push that out to other, the Rotary, the Historical Society, whoever has a database of people, that they can just push it out as well. So I think it's going to be, I think we talked about it, it's just going to be a slow handful of people at a time that we can get to join, but every extra person that joins is one more person that can be more informed, especially as we come into budget season.
We do see them coming in throughout the weeks. It's not, a deluge, it's a trickle right now, but hopefully with more awareness. And I met with the mayor this week and we talked about this very thing and, other things, the churches, Rotary, Chamber of Commerce, through the village, anybody that has a listserv or would allow us to help get the word out.
So that was the PDF. Do you guys have any questions?
Since there are no questions for Mrs. Parkinson, we'll move on with item 4A on the agenda. And this would be a motion from a board member to accept the retirements of 6 individuals from the school system, including Della Mazio, Sue Berry, Sue Sterling, Jane O'Brien, Brian Hart, and Karen Roberka.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on those retirements?
A lot of years there. Yeah, just thanks for their
Yeah.
service. I think it's,
Sincere thanks for, a lot of senior level staff, many hundreds of years of combined service. When you add it all up.
Della's the first person that every mom and dad meets when they have a little 5-year-old coming into school. She's holds court right there in the front, so I think she's lovely. So good luck to all of them and congratulations and thanks for everything.
Yeah, good luck in your next venture.
Any further discussion?
It's very, very minor. I was just noticing that one of the dates is July 1st and the majority of the rest are June 30th. Is there a reason?
That's just how they submitted their retirement, so
Okay.
that's what we have to go by.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, then all in favor of accepting those 6 retirements, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, we do accept those retirements. Next, we'd like to group items B, C, D, and E together. These are substitute appointments for Lori Ciascio, Andrew Warrow, Louisa Morrow, and Carrie Heft. And they are temporary appointments for Joanna Smealing, and also spring coaches, extracurricular class and club advisors, and a work arrangement for Elizabeth Bell. Item D is probationary appointment for Maria Murphy, food service helper. And lastly, item E is a stipend correction for William Plum, garden custodian.
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the appointments?
Is this the one with the CSE chair?
CPSC, as part
Oh,
of,
okay.
as
That's
part
what-
of Joanna's internship, we wanted her to get involved with that.
Okay, that was my
This is
only
just to
question,
make sure
it's
we
not,
really struggle with that.
just informational really for me, is what's the criteria for that?
Uh,
You don't have to be a certified special ed teacher or
Once you have
administrator or?
your internship certificate, you are licensed to do it.
Okay.
Yep.
And the substitute ordinance for instructional positions and carrying out was for a nurse position. Substitute nurse. Any further discussion? Hearing all in favor of making those appointments and type that correction, please say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And those 4 items. Next, I'd like to request that we group items F, G, H, I, and J together. Item F is change order approvals, Phase 2 project 2021. And this is to J&E Electric for the transportation facility for the emergency lighting improvements. And also to the same firm for State Street intermediate ceiling fans. There's a bus proposition allowing us to expend up to $501,000 on transportation equipment. And this would then be a proposition that would be put in front of the public for the school for ultimately for public approval. It's a change to the IRS mileage rate, increasing for the IRS from 56 cents a mile to 58.5 cents a mile. It would allow us to dispose of the washer dryer that's no longer working in the kitchen. And lastly, it would be to approve the financial reports for the county assembled from the month of December. So if I could have a motion from the board member to approve those 5 different items.
Motion?
Moved,
Second?
moved and seconded. Any discussion, any questions?
Yeah, Connor, how many buses, with everything cost increases, what?
It's 4 buses.
Okay.
Yeah. 1 wheelchair bus, which is around 135,000, the others are around about.
I didn't know it was 4 or 5, so I was trying to figure out the,
Yeah,
because everything's continued to rise in price, and I
It
don't know how
is.
much, yeah.
yeah. So it's 4 again. Continue the bus replacement plan.
So bus replacement plan, and we put some of the older buses up for sale probably for the plan.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
2 buses, is it?
That'll be 4.
4 buses.
Yep. And those are obviously newer, so we should get a bigger kickback on those as well.
Can you expand a little bit on the ceiling fans for air distribution? Is that a part of a maybe larger problem?
Yeah.
That it, is this a Band-Aid?
Yeah, this is more of a remediation issue that was part of the big 23-24 project.
Okay.
So we do have funds left over in project 2021, so we are chipping out part of that it can be kind of isolated. Other work is in the kitchen, windows, and other HVAC units that we can't really rip out right now. But this will be able to be done over a break and not take up instruction time and affect operations.
So how long is it likely that we would
Do the rest.
yeah.
So the project 23-24 was just submitted. The scope was submitted to SCSD at the end of last week or the week before. And then they'll approve our scope, come back with questions, and then bidding will be in the fall. And then that won't probably be until the winter of next year or the spring of next year.
Can I be there the day you turn ceiling fans on in the cafeteria? The kids are gonna go
They'll
wild.
be pretty excited, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, man.
Connor, anything on the financial reports that we should be, that seem out of the ordinary?
Status quo.
How are we doing on bus driver substitutes? It's not really related, but anytime we talk about the buses, I like to ask.
We've been holding steady, and with some of the infections dropping significantly, it's knock on wood, we've been great throughout. We've had enough bandwidth to partner with some services that we share through Auburn to help them out in a pinch as well. So it's been a great partnership, and knock on wood, they've been wonderful.
Great. Thank you to all the bus drivers.
Absolutely.
Any further questions or any further discussion? Right then, seeing none, I'd like to put those 5 items up for a vote. All in favor of us approving items F, G, H, I, and J, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we do enact those approvals. And the final item of new business, item K, this would be a motion from a board member to approve 3 committee on special ed, preschool special ed reports, and 6 committee on special education reports.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Amanda, seconded by Dan. Any discussion? All in favor? Yes.
Sorry, and this, might be more for Jen, but how are we doing on service providers in the massive shortage on service providers for CPSE?
So far,
Yes.
so good. I know Jen's been working with the county to identify some additional people, but again, knock on wood, so far so good. Yeah, we've been able to identify everybody that we need so far. It is getting more competitive though, for sure.
It is, and, I guess I'm hearing some stories about it's very challenging to find service providers right now.
Yeah, speech especially has been a challenge.
And some kids, really going without for large periods of time. So just so that's on our radar, not
Yeah.
that we can necessarily move mountains, but making sure that we're really taking care of these kids who need these early intervention services.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any further discussion, any portions of the reports? All right. Then all in favor of approving these 9 reports, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, we approve the reports. We're now at closing items. I'd like to form an agenda setting team.
No. Tom, sorry to interrupt you. One of the things I was going to ask is we oddly have 2 board meetings scheduled in March. And if you look where February break falls, the March and where we are right now, there's like, 2 weeks between here and there. There's nothing, Connor and I met and Rebecca and I met today. There's nothing substantial that needs to happen between now and March 1st. And I didn't know if the board would consider eliminating the March 1st meeting and holding the next one on March 15th as scheduled.
Maybe that'd be good, isn't that one of our scheduled strategic planning, or we could put that in there too,
Yeah,
so.
it gives us a little bit of time. There's nothing substantial, there's no appointments that between now and then that would have to happen. So just wanted to offer that option.
We feel like we'll have adequate time for discussion on the budget.
So early in March, there's the budget workshops that we'll be going through, so that would be scheduled for the 7th and the 14th.
Independent activity then.
No activity,
Yeah, so-
anything to be voted on.
But not part of the board meeting, but budget workshops open to the public.
Yep.
Board members can attend, all members of the public can attend.
Yep, the facility where we'll have that if they'll be here or in one of the auditoriums or something like that. But yeah, we'll definitely make that public and it'll be very transparent. It'll be a whole budget presentation of where we are at that point.
Okay, so the 7th and 14th. Okay, so the item before the board then is elimination of the March 1st meeting. In favor of having the March 15th meeting instead.
I'm fine with that, if something comes up and we have to,
For the special.
oh, that, yeah, we
Thank
can.
you. Yeah.
That's fine.
All right.
And Connor, just to your note about the 2 budget workshops, being that February break is so late, I only plan by the day, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people that do that too, but at the same time, if we could even just get a reminder that most people will probably accidentally delete, but I don't wanna wait till after February break and then be like, oh, by the way, next Tuesday there's a meeting, because
Sure.
then parents get caught up in the post-break, get back into life shuffle, so if we could put something out there before break, even if it's just kind of a little ping, so that when they see it the second time, it's not catching anybody off guard, and when we have the workshops, let's make sure that we are mindful that a lot of us work full-time, but some of us are home during the day, in the evening we have to be with our kids, and so let's make sure that we can tap both sets of parent styles so that
Sure.
everybody gets a chance to come, the daytime option and an evening option.
And last year they were recorded as well, so they could always go back and watch them as well. So, yeah.
We, with things lightening up a little bit, as we expect, we'll be doing a little bit of our traveling roadshow too, so we'll figure out how to get out into the community as well, not just have everybody come to us all the time.
Yeah, I just want to be mindful that, if there's some moms and dads that drop their kids off at Waterman, so if it can be right after that, you can tap some of those parents in, but then there's people that can't do daytime stuff, and they can only do evenings, and I just want to make sure we give everyone equal chance to access the information. It's up to them to be informed and to come, they've got that responsibility, but
For sure.
I want to provide them every opportunity we can.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Then, is there no announcements before us? We're now at the second opportunity for public comment.
Agenda setting?
Yes, agenda planning.
So agenda setting will be for the March 15th meeting.
So March.
Do we have any proposed dates for that?
We talked about March 10th as a proposed date,
Thursday,
March 10th.
At 8 a.m. or 4.
Okay.
I could do the 8 a.m. on the 10th, but I've got to go to town right after
That's
that.
the book study day is, that's one of those dates.
We could do the 9th.
Can we do the night?
Yeah.
Sure, you're back then.
Yep.
So Wednesday the 9th. At what time?
I can do the 4.
No, I can do the 4.
And,
I could do the 8 or the 4 on the 9th. I can do either one.
Okay.
Okay, who do we have on Amanda, Carrie, and
and,
Daniel?
Great, thank you.
That's good.
4 o'clock.
First time?
At 4. All right.
Okay, we're now at the second opportunity for public comment. Thank you all for attending tonight. Appreciate it. If there's no further business before the board tonight, then we'd entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. Any discussion? Okay, then all in favor of adjourning at 7:55, please say aye.
I
Any opposed? We are adjourned.